Good morning. Hit that a little hard, didn't I? Welcome everybody to the April 24th, 2025 meeting of the Michigan State Transportation Commission. Welcome everyone here in the public, and welcome to all the commissioners and staff. We'll start right out by hearing from the Director of the Michigan Department of Transportation, Brad.
Just a few things to talk about. Just another update on our program and kind of where we are with budget right now. I do want to kind of highlight the work that's still going on up in northern Michigan with respect to our ice storm. And of course, it is Work Zone Awareness Week. So, this is our current approved transportation investment program over the next 5 years. You'll see the lion's share of that is obviously the road and bridge program, but also the support that goes to public transportation and aeronautics as well. This is an interesting slide in that it shows where we are with the program in 2025. We're still in the process of delivering the Rebuilding Michigan bonding program. So we have a lot of dollars that are still going out the door in 2025. I think the top row there, repair and rebuild roads, is something I want to point out specifically. You'll see that from an R&R for roads perspective, almost $1.7 billion. If you go over and look at the annual average over those 5 years, you'll see that it's much lower. We're 950 million or so. And again, that's largely because of the investments that we're making with the bond monies with Rebuilding Michigan. So when we look at what our program delivery looks like over the next 5 years, I've heard others say that we have this looming funding cliff. This is kind of a demonstration of what that looks like. 2025, 2026, we're still delivering very big projects. We'll be ramping down with the bonding program though. And our current federal authorization, which is the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that will need to be reauthorized going into 2027. So I think these numbers, 27 to 29, are probably we're being a little conservative right now because of the unknowns, but we can clearly see that investments going forward are going to be different than they have been for the last few years. Also, at the same time, we're looking at the cost of construction. So several years ago, we entered into a research contract with Western Michigan University. I believe I've presented on this specifically before, to develop a Michigan highway construction cost index. There's been a national one for many, many years, and what Western Michigan was able to do for us is create an annualized index that was much more Michigan-based, but also looked at a lot of our peer states. Not just the states around us, but states that are like us from a system perspective. And what you'll see there is, obviously, we had a pandemic in 2020, 2021, and beyond that really escalated the inflation. So over prior to COVID, we had always used about a 4% per year inflationary rate when we were programming our projects. So in the 5-year program, 4% per year. The research with Western Michigan showed that 4% per year was actually very close to what we were actually seeing. So we were pretty excited that we were in the ballpark. Well, then COVID happened. And I haven't done the exact math on this, but from 2020 to 2022, 23, I believe it was about a 30% or more increase in inflation over that timeline. So that means that we could do roughly 1/3 less work with the same amount of money. So if I could pave a mile with a certain dollar amount in 2019, 2020, now I'm only able to pave about 2/3 of a mile. You'll see that Michigan has leveled off a bit, even a bit came down in 2024, which was a little surprising. Our peer states are kind of mimicking what Michigan's is. But we are in a little bit better shape from a highway construction cost index, but if you see where we are in 2024 versus prior to the pandemic, it's still an issue that we're dealing with. Rebuilding Michigan, the bond program that the commission has approved for us in the past, we're about 2/3 of the way through. 2/3 of the projects are 90% or more complete. Another third of those projects roughly are still in the pipeline. We do have 2 more projects to be bid out. That'll happen later this summer, maybe into the fall. Those 2 rather big projects. We still have $700 million to go out to the market with out of the $3.5 billion. We work very closely with Treasury on this with respect to the timing of when we should go out for those bonds for a couple of reasons. One, obviously market conditions, but 2, we want to time that so that we're not, hanging on to a bunch of cash. We want to be able to time it so that it's more coinciding for when the actual expenditures will happen on those projects. So I mentioned Rebuilding Michigan's coming down. You still have a lot of work ongoing right now, and like I said, a couple more yet to put out for bids. So what does our trunk line condition look like? And apologies to our bridge folks, this is only for pavement. I believe the bridge looks like this, if not maybe a little bit worse. But it just gives you an idea of where we are for a trunk line system. And remember, the trunk line is not only the freeways, but it's also the business routes, it's the M routes, it's the US routes and downtowns across the state. We have a goal of 90% good and fair. We actually made it back in like 2007, I believe. We've been holding on to this for many years. A lot of it has been one-time investments. I go back to like the Recovery Act in 2009, 10-ish time frame. We've had some other state one-time infusions. Obviously, we've had the Rebuilding Michigan bond program that's helped us again to kind of stave off this curve. But without additional investments, we are still seeing a pretty significant decline in the trunk line system going forward. And again, a reminder for folks, well, 2 reminders. One, the bond program was a bond program. It's been very successful, and it's got us some great projects, but that is money we have to pay back. And 2, we operate far more than just freeways. So looking forward, this is the governor's executive recommended budget. This is not our 2026 budget. This is what has been recommended. The lion's share of that would go to state and local road and bridge construction and maintenance. You can see how the other funding for our modes and the small amount for administration and obviously the debt service for the bonds is in there as well. But we're looking at about $6.8 billion as, again, the governor's recommended budget. Where that comes from, you can see a big chunk of that is federal aid funding. And according to Act 51 right now, the state has about 75% of that to the trunk line, and I think 25% goes to local agencies. But you'll see the other bigger pieces are the state trunk line fund, and what's shown there as the MTF is actually the county and municipality portion of the MTF. Just a couple of highlights. This is a relatively flat budget compared to 2025, just from a comparison standpoint. The recommendation is in there for $112 million for us to be able to match all of our federal aid. I think most folks know that when we take $4 of federal aid, we have to match it with at least $1. About 20% is the match requirement. So if not for this $100 million, we would be foregoing $400 million in federal aid. The recommended budget also includes some money here to do a road usage charging study. In the past, the legislature has asked us to do kind of some synthesis and reporting on what other states have been doing in this space. And this is really with declining revenues with fuel taxes. As cars become more fuel efficient, as alternate fuel vehicles come into the market. Granted, EVs do pay an increased registration fee to kind of offset that, but we're looking at what might be a more appropriate road usage charge going forward. Many other states are doing things in this space, and we're keeping a close eye on that. We're working very closely with the County Road Association as well, because I know it's a big priority for them as well. So again, those are just the recommendations right now. I don't have any slides on it, and I'm not going to speak a lot to it, but obviously we're aware that there is more discussion right now about funding for transportation. Very excited for that. We know that the Republicans in Speaker Hall have their plan proposed and through the House. We know that the governor is very interested in this as well, and really wants to work with anybody to make sure that we can make that happen. The dollar amounts are about the same. The idea of shifting the sales tax that you pay at the pump, which currently does not go to transportation, moving that over so that every penny you pay at the pump goes to transportation. I think there's a lot of alignment in the plans, but we still have a ways to go, and MDOT is looking forward to the negotiations and how we can be supportive. Ice storm update. I mentioned this at the outset, and it still astounds me when I talk to people downstate here and they have no idea of what happened up north. But as you can see, in late March and extending for several days, had an unprecedented ice storm. Gosh, I can remember when we had ice storm down here in 2014, 2015, and I lost some trees in my yard, and I thought it was devastating. When you see some of the things that went on up here, we're talking about entire counties, 12 counties declaring emergency. A quarter inch or 3/4 to an inch of ice, if not more, on everything. The power grid itself was just destroyed. The Mackinac Bridge, we've closed the Mackinac Bridge before for extremely high winds or falling ice from time to time. It was closed for over a day. Nobody ever remembers seeing ice like this before. And the extent of this was amazing, covering almost all of the northeastern part of the Lower Peninsula. I think we highlighted the trunk lines here just because those are the roads that we've been working on, but it's far more than the trunk lines. All of our county partners, the municipalities, everybody's dealing with this right now, and obviously the utility providers. I do want to say that it's been a great partnership in working with those entities, though. The department with the counties here, we know there's other counties. Kent County was one that I remember has sent forces up. Heck, we got Indiana DOT forces that even came up and helped us through this. So I really, as devastating as this is, and it's still ongoing, it's not done. I mean, there is a lot of work that still remains to be completed on this, but I just can't stress enough to folks how devastating this was and how great the partnerships have been in addressing those issues. I don't know if this is going to play or not, but I'm going to try to play a quick video. This is one of our state trunk lines, day after. And, this is one road in one place. And if you can imagine that map that I showed you that was all of northeast lower Michigan, this is what it looks like. And I'm not sure if you can see power poles in these videos or not, but I've been told that there's just, miles of power lines that are all folded over and down. Thousands of new poles have been delivered to this part of the state for our utility providers to start getting those things back to service. So pretty amazing, to say the least. A lot of this stuff I kind of mentioned. We had a lot of department folks. I do really want to thank our TMWs, our maintenance workers that were really boots on the ground, and the folks with the chainsaws and the equipment that have done all of this work, and not just the folks in the North region, but our folks that came up, from downstate. Thank our county partners, the DNR and the National Guard were all involved in this. So really an all hands on deck effort in taking care of these extreme issues. Then the very last thing is just a reminder that it is currently Work Zone Awareness Week, hence the orange pin on my lapel. Yesterday was Wear Orange Day, and I kick myself now. There was a great picture that I should have added here, but I'll show you that picture later, because we all wore orange yesterday, and some go to more extremes than others. But this is Work Zone Awareness Week. It's really an effort to again get out the word to people. When you're traveling through a work zone, they are not the safest places to be driving or working, so please pay attention. We have hardworking men and women that are in these work zones trying to fix the damn roads for us, but you also have many of your fellow motorists that are driving through those work zones. They deserve your full attention. This is Work Zone Awareness Week. We are doing a press event next Monday at 11 o'clock at the beautiful Dow Diamond in Midland. So with that, I thank you for your time, and commissioners, if there's any questions.
Are there questions for the director? Suzanne?
I have one. It came up when we had the TAMC report provided to us, and it's in here as well in your presentation about the 90% good and fair. Where does that goal come from?
It's from the commission.
So
that was established many years ago. I believe it was right around late 90s when we got our a fuel increase under Governor Engler. That was when we were just starting our asset management program. That's when we were starting our 5-year program. And those were some goals that were mentioned from the State Transportation Commission.
So then would it be under the purview of the commission to discuss whether or not 90% is a realistic target?
I would ask the commission that question. I would think so.
So that might be something for future discussion to think about. I've gone through that on a local level and trying to determine what actually is in alignment with your resources and what can you actually reasonably achieve. So you're not always looking like, I'm not saying it's a failure, but it's one of those, is it even attainable with the resources provided? So that might be something for us to consider.
We would be more than happy to help support that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I recollect, too, that we had this discussion early on when I was on the commission. I've been on the commission now for almost, I think, 12 years. And I remember talking about it when Jerry Young was chair, and we talked about whether or not it's realistic. We talked about it as aspirational, and I can recall, this is totally unrelated, but it kind of is where my mind goes on these things. I can remember back in my working life when I worked in the chemical industry, and we, as an industry, adopted the goal of 0 deaths, 0 accidents, 0 injuries. And everybody said, well, that's not attainable. And the discussion industry-wide revolved around, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it certainly is something ideally which you'd want to be. So discussing, those kind of aspirational goals is healthy, I think. Attainable goals are one thing, aspirational goals are another. So I'm open to the discussion. I actually kind of like 90%. I'd kind of like 100%, but I think it's certainly worthy of a discussion. I wonder during the budget discussion, Director, if we couldn't ask the legislature perhaps to adopt a House joint resolution adopting the 90% as a goal. Do you think they'd be open to that?
Great question.
You don't have to answer that.
Great question. Great question.
You don't have to answer that. Other questions? On the work zone safety, I just extend a welcome to everybody to come to Midland on Monday. I live 3 blocks from Dow Diamond where that'll take place, and so welcome you into my neighborhood. It'd be great. I went last year. It was really, really fascinating. The department does and others related to safe work zones do a wonderful job of presenting the case for work zone safety, the concerns, the technology, all that kind of thing. So it's really, really worth your time. I'll be there again this year. Interestingly enough, they were handing out oval decals for your back window that talk about work zone safety, and I grabbed a couple of them and put them on my vehicles, and my car's out there in the parking lot today, and it's on there. And it serves 2 purposes, really. One is to have other people on the road see it and maybe pay attention to it, but it really helps me, because if you're driving down the road and you know you've got that on your back window and you come up on a work zone, you're a lot more conscious of it, because, I'm just like every other driver. I drive along in a certain level of consciousness about my surroundings. I should be very conscious of it, right? Well, if that's on there, I know I best be slowing down and respecting those people that work so hard day in and day out and put themselves in harm's way when they really shouldn't be in harm's way at all. So anyway, that's just a editorial comment. Are there any other questions of the director? If you could extend on behalf of the commission, just kudos to all the people that work so hard up in that ice storm area. It's another example, and it was really good of you, Director Wayfrick, to talk about the intergovernmental cooperation, everybody rising to the challenge. It just in this day and age when government employees, when certain questions are asked about government employees, it's wonderful to have them stand up and see just how tremendous they are day in and day out, and the service they provide to all of us as citizens. So thank them on our behalf, if you would, please, when you're talking with the various leaders.
I absolutely will. Thank you, Chair.
Are there other comments or concerns? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Director.
you, Commissioners.
All right, we can start into the actual business of the meeting. And the first item on the agenda are the minutes from the January 30th, 2025 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Are there any comments, corrections, concerns? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Schultz. A second? Second. Commissioner Brown, second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. They pass. The next item is the State Transportation Commission Policy Review Work Group recommendations. There's been a lot of work going on in between meetings. I have to commend Vice Chair Salisbury and Commissioner Welborn as kind of the work group with me, and Jack and Laura and others involved, Amy, in the department on these policy reviews. It's been it's sometimes tedious, sometimes quite eye-opening, always very interesting, but it does take a lot of work and reaching understandings within the group, and everybody has just really risen to the occasion. So kudos to everybody involved. We do have a number of policies that you should have received a mailing on as commissioners that we'd like to act on today. There are 5 or 6 of them, so let me turn it over to Jack, Office of Commission Audit, who has kind of led the staff level review here and worked with us very closely. So Jack?
Thank you, Chair Hayes. Good morning, everybody. Policy 1002 pertains to transportation safety. And what we did is we simplified the language, removed certain portions that seemed unnecessarily specific, and expanded the topic of safety to all of MDOT.
As you might guess, safety was a topic that took a lot of discussion. And I think, well, I know those involved in the work group are pretty happy with where we landed on this. So I would put it before the commission for further discussion. Is there any discussion? Mr. Schultz?
I really like the changes to the policy. Thank you to the work group for making those. I think, it's easy to want to talk about safe systems approach and specifically name things, but understanding that those things change over time from Vision Zero to safe systems, or how we use that as terminology. But this affects every single person in the state of Michigan and is a very important policy. And I'm pleased to see it as kind of a standalone item. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? If not, I would call for a motion. Well, I'll make the motion as chair of the task group. Is there support? Commissioner Brown supported. Any further discussion? Okay. Michael, could you call the roll on this?
I certainly can. For the revisions to CP 10002, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 votes. The revisions pass.
Thank you, Michael. Jack, could you take us to the next?
Policy 10003, it's Commission Oversight, and the revisions were made to place more requirements upon MDOT to report certain things that they do, and to provide to the State Transportation Commission various reporting along the way, as may be requested by the Commission.
On this one, I think it's a good reminder that I think the department does a really great job every time we meet of providing us with a tremendous amount of background information and such, but it's always the prerogative, if you will, of the commission to ask for additional information or new information that may not be before us, and the department's always been very good about coming forth with that. It may not be at that particular meeting, may have to wait till the next one, but it is our prerogative to ask for information. We're a policy-making body, so it isn't. It may not be information that we can directly act on because it's acted on administratively by the department, but it's a good opportunity for our knowledge and information as commissioners. So goodly amount of discussion took place on this policy as well. Are there other comments, concerns, or questions on policy 10003? Commissioner Schultz?
Again, I would just like to thank the work group working on this. I know I had a little bit of heartburn initially with this, particularly because of the second part, talking about ending with operational effectiveness. And Jack and I ended up having a great discussion about, that doesn't necessarily mean efficiency, because my concern was that operations would drive decision-making if we're focused on just operational efficiency, when there's lots of other considerations when we're thinking about the transportation network and the users of that system. And I think the juxtaposition of this policy adjacent to the safety policy is a good example where when we're talking about effectiveness, has a strong meaning to it as far as thinking about it's not just about how to do things cheaper and faster, but to do it well. And so I appreciate the content here.
It is interesting, isn't it, how one word can make a big difference, but it certainly did. So if you take the policy we just acted on and now this one, we want to be safe and effective. Pretty laudable policies. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll make a motion on this as well and would take a second. Thank you, Commissioner Schultz, second. And any further discussion? If not, Michael, could you call the roll?
Yeah, for the revision to Commission Policy 10003, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 yeses. The revisions pass.
The policy is now up to date as of now. Thank you. Jack, let's go to 10005.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commission policy proposals input from public interest groups. It clarifies that the commission is not required to request comments from the public and interest groups. However, the commission may request comments if so desired.
Are there comments, concerns on the minor revisions? I see none. I would make a motion that we adopt this policy. Is there support?
Second.
Commissioner Salisbury supported it. Are there any further discussion? If not, Michael, please call the roll.
For the revisions to Commission Policy 10005, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 votes yes. The changes pass.
Commission Policy 10005 has now been revised and updated. Jack, let's go to 10013, please.
Entitled Right-of-Way Acquisition, Management, Clearance, and Sale. It was clarified and made more concise, and there was some attestation requirements that were added relative to current and former state of Michigan employees.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, this was, it's obviously a fairly complicated policy, but I think we improved the transparency as to any potential conflicts of interest with the revised wording. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns on policy 10013? Commissioner Schultz?
The only question I had is where turnbacks come in. I know it's a different thing, but I didn't know if turnbacks were something that, or how that gets reported to the commission, and it may not belong in this policy or not, but I just had that question.
I know the chair is supposed to know everything, but what's a turnback?
So it's when MDOT gives up jurisdiction over a road and it goes back to a local agency. So it's MDOT no longer has jurisdiction over that right of way.
I don't remember it being discussed in regards to this policy. Perhaps we can take that as an issue bin matter and talk about that after adopting this policy, if there's something we should be doing on that.
I don't have any problems with this policy. It was just more of a question I had, because I do think that, especially as we're talking about road funding, and understanding turnbacks and the benefits and, how those affect the system, I think that might be a good conversation.
Okay, we'll put that on the issue bin for further discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, I would move approval of the updated policy 10013. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Salisbury, seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, Michael, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. For the revisions to Commission Policy 10013, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 votes yes, the revisions pass.
Thank you. Commission Policy 10013 is now revised and updated. Thank you. Jack, could we go to 10080, bonding guidelines?
Yes, the policy now includes examples of transportation facilities, reporting requirements, and a statement limiting the ratio of restricted revenue to its maximum annual debt service of not less than a 4-to-1 ratio.
This policy is, again, fairly complex, but it was one that was, let's see, it was adopted in 94, maybe? No. Let me look here. '99 was when it was adopted, and this wording better reflects how bonding is done today. This is in compliance with what the bonding houses require, and it was, I believe, even in some consultation with the Attorney General's office, if I'm not mistaken, Kathleen. And so, are there questions or comments on the bonding minor revisions? If not, I would move approval of Commission Policy 10080. Is there support? Support. Support from Commissioner Schultz. Any further discussion? If not, Michael, could you call the roll, please?
For the minor revisions to Commission Policy 10080, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 votes yes. The minor revisions pass.
Okay, thank you. And finally on the list for today, Jack, is Commission Policy 10239, self-insurance program for Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah, the recommendation is to rescind because the original policy seemed to have been pointed at protecting the Mackinac Bridge Authority, and after the policy was created, protections came into effect by way of law. So between the agreement, there is an agreement between MDOT and the bridge. Between that agreement's existence and the law, the policy is not necessary, we think.
Thank you, Jack. As relatively simple as this question seems to be, it got a lot of discussion. Commissioner Welborn, as an attorney, she's just done a stellar job as a committee member and helped us really think this one through on whether or not this is a wise thing to do. And I think everybody's very comfortable that this is the right thing to do given the change in the law and such. Are there questions? If not, I would move approval of rescinding Commission Policy 10239. Is there support?
Second.
Support from Commissioner Salisbury. Any further discussion? If not, Michael, could you call the roll, please?
For rescinding Commission Policy 10239, Chair Hayes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Salisbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Chair, you have 4 votes yes to rescind policy.
Policy 10239 has been rescinded. We are still in this process, as just to remind everyone that we started out a few months ago with the aim of reviewing all these State Transportation Commission policies to make sure that they're up to date, that they still make sense, and so on. And it's just been a lot of good hard work and thought put into these, and again, I thank everybody for that. Jack, about how many more policies do we have to review?
I think about maybe 7-ish.
So with about 7 more to review, we're within the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. We really wanted to get this completed by year's end. Perhaps we could even have it earlier than that, but we're making really, really good progress. Really pleased with that. Are there any comments about the policy review work group or process? Commissioner Schultz.
Chair, I would just like to thank you for your leadership and to thank Commissioners Welborn and Salisbury for their work on this. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to go through all that, and to MDOT staff, thank you.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Schultz. Okay, with that, thank you, Jack, very much for
Thank you all.
all your help on this. Next item is the Transportation Asset Management Council appointment nominations. They're in your packet. Michael, would you want to explain any of this to us?
Yes, for the Transportation Asset Management Council, we received a letter from the Michigan Municipal League nominating Karen Medora, who is Assistant City Manager for the City of Farmington Hills, and she will be replacing Bob Slattery, who was also part of Michigan Municipal League portion of the Transportation Asset Management Council.
I had a question on this, only in timing. It seemed odd to me that we're appointing when the person hasn't really resigned. Is the person subsequently resigned now, or it just seems odd to do it ahead of time? But
Well, he'll be stepping down. That's what he announced, so I don't know if he has officially done that yet.
we won't meet again until when? August? July. And they probably would like to be able to conduct business this summer, so I guess I'm okay with that. It just seems a little bit of having the cart ahead of the horse, but is there a motion to approve the appointment of Karen Mondoro to the Transportation Asset Management Council? Commissioner Brown moved, and Commissioner Schultz supported. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. There's another one here. Michael?
Nope, that's it.
Oh, I thought there was another appointment. Orny?
Okay, yes. Yes, we have another addition from the Michigan Municipal League for John Gorney, Public Works Director for the City of Grand Rapids.
I'd entertain a motion to appoint John Gorney.
So moved.
Commissioner Schultz, is there support?
Second.
Commissioner Salisbury. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That appointment is approved. Very good. Thank you. Now we go into our oversight listings. So the quarterly bid letting summary. Patrick.
Good morning, Commissioners. In your packet today, the first document that you'll have is titled the Quarterly Bid Letting Summary, which documents all the items MDOT let for the second quarter, which is January through March of 2025. In the second quarter, MDOT let 167 projects. The second document, titled Bid Letting Trends for 2023 through 2025, including quarter two, documents the various trends in the bid letting process, including the number of projects let, the number of single bidders, and the number of all bids rejected, as well as payments made to contractors for 2023 through 2025 quarter two, again, January through March of 2025. The third document, titled Michigan Department of Transportation Procurement Card Fiscal Year 2025 Second Quarter, documents the number of procurement card transactions and the total amount paid against procurement cards for the second quarter of 2025, as well as identified procurement card transactions that are currently being reviewed. Do you have any questions about any of these documents?
Other questions? Commissioner Schultz?
I just had a question on page 53. I like the charts and graphs. The number of bids per region. So the first row is the actual number of bids received, and then the number in each one of the rows represents the number of projects. Is that correct?
Are you referring to the number of bids per region chart at the bottom chart on that page?
I am, the
Okay.
table.
So this is a breakdown of the letting responses by the region, and then for each specific advertised item, the number of bid responses that we received. So we had one project that only received one bid in the Bay region, and then further to the right on that same column for Bay region, they had 4 projects that had 7 bids on them. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. They had 7 projects that had 4 bids on them.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was reading that right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions? I like the graphs too. We did not have these a number of years ago when I was a commissioner, and these really, really help. It was tough sledding going through a lot of words before, and this has really been helpful. So,
If there's anything else you would like to see, please let me know and we can add other information to this report.
no, we're doing good so far. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, quarterly bid justifications, Dee?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to draw your attention to pages 57 through 107, titled the Quarterly Bid Justification Summary for the Second Quarter of Fiscal Year 2025. Within those pages, you will see our 2025 fiscal year program graph dating back to October of 24 through March of 2025. You will also see scattered charts and graphs showing where bids fell within the target range of plus or minus 10%. You will also see the justification and rejection reports and memos for the second quarter. Again, that's January through March 2025. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns in regards to pages 57 through 107?
Questions, comments? I'd ask a question on page 59. That one big outlier over there between 70 and 80 million dollars. What project is that? I was just curious.
I'd have to search, Commissioner, to see which project that is.
I meant to ask it before we came into the commission meeting, because it's just curiosity. I mean, I don't have a real problem. I just.
I wonder if that was I-75. Yeah, I have to check, Commissioner.
Okay.
I'm thinking I-75 Monroe County, but I have to check.
That just jumped off the page is a big one.
$70 million
But it shows us is
But it came under.
that came under, so that's a good thing.
That is correct. So I want to say I-75 project in Monroe County. I believe is what that is. I believe the bid came in maybe about 25 million under, maybe right along in there, if I
Oh,
recall
wow.
correctly.
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions of Dee Parker? Mr. Schultz?
I had one more question. Well, it's kind of related to the table that we just talked about, but the bids and then the costs. Because I also had rattling around in my head, I read the Citizens Research Council of Michigan report from March, and I guess a random question I had was, with Michigan being a peninsula, and the number of contractors we had, and I know like the Great Recession affected contractors in Michigan in general. It went south. Does that play a part in availability of contractors in their bidding, given that they can't just easily cross state lines to go between multiple states? Does that make, I don't know if that question makes sense, but you only have so much, you have so much travel time and to get to some of these locations. And when I was looking through some of where the overbids were, location was cited as one of the reasons quite commonly.
Yes, yes, location was cited. I mean, we have contractors in Wisconsin, we have contractors in Ohio that tend to come up, or Indiana tends to come up as well, that are pre-qualified with our department. And so, location is definitely, key for a lot of our contractors as far as being able to put in a bid for that project. Because they have to keep in mind mobilization costs, their staff, resources, and things like that. So I'm quite sure, as a business owner, a lot of those things definitely come into play as far as amount of resources needed on that project.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Dee. Real estate services?
Yes, for your information, I'd like to draw your attention to page 108, titled Commission Summary Real Estate Service Section, Disposal of Real Property Interests. You will see a list of excess property that are being sold. Again, this is for your information. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns in regards to page 108?
Questions? I think we're good. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
And final construction contracts, I don't see Jason, so Ken Kepke?
Thank you. Yeah, I am not Jason, so I will do my best to try to fill his shoes for you today.
Those big shoes.
So I believe the report starts on page 109 of your packet. Regarding that report, MDOT projects finaled for January, February, and March of 2025 totaled 51 projects for approximately $129 million. 6 of those were over 10% of their original contract amount. 25 of those were under the original contract value. The monthly contract costs were respectively negative 0.17%, 3.63%, and 1.87% when compared to the original contract values. Calendar year 2025 is averaging 2.12% over the original contract amount. On local agency projects, finaled in January, February, and March, they totaled 122 projects, totaling approximately $135 million. 5 were over 10% of their original contract amount, and 83 were under the original contract value. In the report, there are 7 MDOT projects and 3 local agency projects in the exhibit, and I can entertain any questions or get information for any of those that you have the questions about.
Thank you. Other questions? If not, thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.
We'll go to public comment here in a minute. But while we're just letting some equipment be moved here, I'd like to bring up the thought of the next meeting. We've not kind of met off-site here for a bit, and Commissioner Vice Chair Salisbury has at different times brought up possibly having a meeting at his facility. And would you like to make a case for that, Commissioner Salisbury? Or what would we see if we were to meet there?
Well, we have a new $26 million training facility that we have apprentices being trained in the industry, and those apprentices are working for the contractors that are doing the work with MDOT on multiple projects throughout the state of Michigan. So that's nice, and we're also training the journeymen that are working for the contractors as well at that facility. So the director's been out there. We've had some of the other MDOT representatives out there, so they've seen that facility a little bit. So just a different field trip, kind of see what's going on in the industry.
And that's in Howell?
Yes.
That's in Howell.
See how those roads and bridges are getting built and what equipment does that.
So unless I hear objections, we'll try to work possibly for that July 31st, if it works for their schedule and so on, that we meet in Howell at that facility, if it works. If it doesn't, then we can look at a future meeting, but I know, Commissioner, you've brought it up a few times, and I think it's time that we recognize your hospitality.
Do you want me to set up donuts then that time, so if we're hosting, Brad? Is that on us then?
Also, any donut requests, please forward them to Commissioner Salisbury.
Bagels, okay, thank you. Do we
All
need a
right.
motion for bagels, or are we good?
No, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Okay. So we'll work on that between now and July 31st, and we'll keep people posted. All right, I would open the floor for public comment. Michael, do we have public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment from Jack L. Hoffman to come up. Just as a reminder, it's a 3-minute maximum for all comments.
Yep, if you would, please. Welcome, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just an update on public transportation funding reform. I did gave Ashley a copy of these remarks, so they may be at your desk. On February 10, Governor Whitmer proposed raising $1.7 billion in new transportation funds, including regulatory fees on heavy commercial trucks proportional to the damage heavy trucks cause to the transportation system, plus $1.3 billion converting the sales tax on gas to a fuel tax. The $3 billion in revenue would be divided 57% state roads, 10% state comprehensive transportation, 17% to counties, and 17% to cities. On March 11, the Michigan House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee introduced House Bills 4180 to 4187 and 4230. Their package calls for raising $3.1 billion for transportation funded by budget cuts in economic development, school aid, and revenue sharing. The revenue raised would be distributed 44% to counties, 34% to cities, 18% to state roads, and 3% to state comprehensive transportation. At the same meeting, the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce testified as follows. Their position: 1, roads should be funded by the users of the system, not general taxes on business. The governor's economic development programs are necessary features of the state's economic environment and must be maintained. The Act 51 distributions on which the House plan is based disadvantage urban areas. It is time to rebalance the Act 51 formula. On March 18, the House passed its road package without the changes recommended by the Chamber. Their plan gives state trunk line roads and bridges only $600 additional million per year. We all know that's not adequate, right? The latest MDOT 5-year program calculates annual unmet needs for state trunk line roads and bridges at $2.8 billion per year. Needs for comprehensive transportation are similar. No one has a crystal ball on this issue. However, it seems like a safe prediction that any plan that does not tap funds, new funds in the form of regulatory fees on heavy commercial trucks proportional to the damage caused by trucks to the system will not provide sufficient funds for state trunk line roads and comprehensive transportation. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Other questions for Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Okay, is there anything else to come before the State Transportation Commission? Hearing none, we are adjourned.